Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the final video before Rebirth drops. Final Fantasy VII hype check. 4 days until Rebirth. Precedence is everything. So if you've seen my other theory videos, you'll know that I am definitely all about bringing attention to several points in the OG to try to explain the shenanigans, quote unquote, in Remake. You know? Thanks, Subtext, for bringing that to people's attention in your latest video, which I'll mention later in my video here. But anyway, Precedence is everything. This video is a little bit of just like a hoorah for Rebirth coming out soon. And it does have a little bit of theory in it as well, but it's not going to be as dense and as long as my other videos, I don't think. So, but yeah. Hype check. First of all, spoilers, of course, you've been warned. So, and if you haven't watched my other videos, like, you know, this probably isn't going to make a whole lot of sense for what I'm talking about here. Okay. So my other videos are right here. I have these 3 on my channel. Time travel in the original Final Fantasy VII, stagnant reality, and aith in the future. They all go together. They all kind of relate. And I try to draw a lot of parallels in the original game to show that there's precedence for lots of things. And I also do try to take some leaps, you know, with some of the evidence that's given to us to see if I can come up with some things that I think are happening that maybe some people aren't quite picking up on or not piecing together in the same exact way that I am. So anyway, hype check though. I'm hyped, right? Like I'm very hyped for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth because this is like the only thing in media that I think I've actually been really excited for. Like there's no TV show or movie that's coming out that I'm like itching to go see, you know? I feel like the last time I maybe had this kind of feeling was like when Remake was coming out in 2020. And maybe before that, if we're talking about movies and stuff, maybe when part 2 of the Matrix trilogy was coming out, or when the Lord of the Rings movies were releasing, I was excited about those. Like, you know, and before that, it was like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to say, you know? Like, when's the last time you were really excited for something? You know? For me, this is kind of it. Final Fantasy VII stuff is just, like, it's amazing how new and fresh and nostalgic it is. Okay. So these are my videos. You can check those out if you want to kill some time over the next few days before Rebirth comes out. So, why are we talking about this anymore? You know, is it too little too late? Shouldn't I just be quiet and just wait for the game to come out? I just want to fit in a couple more details for my theories, for one. But also, I just want to discuss a little bit more. I don't really want to watch anyone's reviews. I don't want to find spoilers on accident. I don't really want to play the Junon demo even. I haven't played it. I just want to naturally get to that point in the game and pick up on the gameplay, you know, as the game presents it. I don't want to get really good at the combat and then jump in at the beginning of the game, because I probably would do that, you know, if I started playing. So I haven't played the Junon portion of the demo. I've only played the flashback. All right, so that's why we're going to talk about it a little more. I'm just pretty like I'm just kind of itching to talk FF7 still, even though it seems like I should just wait, you know. But anyway, so if you're like that, then this video will be for you, you know. So first thing I want to say is Rebirth delivering on boundless, terrifying freedom? It seems like it so far from what we've seen, especially when you compare it to Remake Part 1, which was very linear and corridor driven. That was one of the main criticisms, you know, is that we didn't feel like we got to explore Midgar actually enough. Even though there's quite a bit of Midgar in there, more than the original, it still felt like it would have been cool to be able to hop on the train again, hop on a motorbike again, and drive some places and, you know, check out some of the other sectors at our leisure. But with the way that they were doing things with the whispers and the timing of things, and also just with their general time frame for development, it makes sense why the first part was pretty linear. And it's really cool that at the end of that game, Aerith is talking about boundless, terrifying freedom and the unknown journey. And then this game is like, and I was not a believer at first that they could pull off an open world. They've never proven it before, you know? They've never had an open world game, Square Enix, that they did well. So I was kind of like, yeah, I don't know. That's probably all just kind of talk, and we're just going to be, you know, going through linearly going through the story again in the, you know, whatever. But so far from what we've seen, it looks like Rebirth is delivering on this idea of boundless, terrifying freedom in the gameplay itself and not just a story thing. And so that's exciting, and that looks amazing. Now, this is just fun speculation, okay, this part. But what would completely blow my mind in this game? All right? This doesn't have to happen for me to like it, but what would absolutely blow my mind? Okay, first thing. If Zack is playable, and it's not just like, here's one little chapter or episode or something. Like, I mean, we can go back to him multiple times, if not any time we want. And he has his own gameplay, combat, party, everything. Like I said, I'm not expecting that. I'm not expecting that at all. I'm not going to be disappointed if it's not there. Okay? But if that's in the game, and I don't want to know if you know spoilers. I don't want to know. But if it is, it would absolutely blow my mind that they have hidden that so much, and it would be that fleshed out, you know? It would completely blow my mind to have his own party, his own combat, his own system, his own storyline that is working in tandem with the main storyline that is explaining, you know, how the world works or the live stream works, or, you know, if he's in the future or whatever, like, or if he doesn't know he's dead, of course, you know. Whatever it is. So that'd be the first thing that would absolutely blow my mind. The second thing, and this is another one that, you know, I don't think this would happen. I don't think they could do this. But if they did, my mind would be totally blown, okay? So it would be that if we get to the end of this game and you get to choose, okay? If you got to choose if Aerith lives or dies. Okay. What that would mean for the next game would be they'd have to make 2 games for the next game, so that you could play out both scenarios based on what you did in Rebirth. I know, it sounds like there's no way that's going to happen, so like, why are you even getting my hopes up about that? I know. But this is what would blow my mind. That would absolutely blow my mind. Okay? If that's what was happening, I would just be like, I can't believe it. And the reason I say that is because the fan base is split. You know, maybe it's not 50-50, but there's definitely a split that you can sense and read in comments and on forums and stuff. A lot of people want to be able to save Aerith and think that you should be able to save her if we're going to defy destiny. And other people think, no, it's too important to the story for her to perish. You know, she has to. And also, if it's a sequel, then it seems like something should change, right? And if it's not a sequel and it's a remake, well, then why would it change? It should be the same, and we should expand on her death in the live stream with Zack or whatever that reality is. If it's the stagnant reality, like I say, right? Or if it's the future, and, you know, Aerith has not prayed for holy in the future, and she has now gone back, sent messages back, I should say, not gone back, but sent messages back to herself that she needs to do this. You know? So my point is, would absolutely blow my freaking mind if we got to the end of this game and you got to choose. And you were just like, oh my gosh. Because then you could play through it again and choose something else, and maybe there's a little bit different ending, but then it could just be like, okay, so like if both options are there, what does that mean for the third game? You know? Right. So that would blow my mind. Those two things would absolutely blow my mind. And I'm not going to be disappointed if they don't happen. I'm not, you know, it's okay. I don't think that's happening, right? But this would put me over the edge of hype, right? All right. So speaking of the end, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about my initial feelings on Part 1, Remake's ending. And I think it was a little different from what a lot of people maybe experienced. So my first thought when I was playing the ending, when we were seeing some of these flashes of the future and we were seeing the Edge of Creation and the standoff between Sephiroth and Cloud and how reminiscent it is, the wormhole, you know, how reminiscent it is of the OG and all that stuff. My first thought was I was afraid that they were trying to cap off the entire FF7 story in the next like 5 minutes. And there was not going to be any more parts to this remake. And it was just, this was it. I was getting really worried that that's what was going to happen. And I thought like maybe this is why they're including Sephiroth so much, is so that they can just like, we can defeat him here and then he, you know, and that's it. And it's like, boom, Final Fantasy VII Remake, you know, like what? This sucks. So that was kind of like what I was like feeling and thinking when we're like defeating Fate and we're seeing Sephiroth here. We're already facing off with him. I was very worried that like they're just trying to wrap things up. Maybe it was because they thought it's going to flop, you know, and they made a mistake or something. I don't know. That was what I was going through. And a lot of people felt this kind of like confusion and like anxiety, right? About the whispers and everything that was happening in the ending there. But that's what I was feeling. And then when you kind of see like there's some post credits, there's the unknown journey, there's stuff with that, I was like, okay, good. Like good. They're not doing that. Whew, you know. And then my first thought was, okay, like Zack doesn't know he's dead, right? Like that's got to be what's happening. So that was on that train. I was like, Zack doesn't know he's dead. It's all one timeline. Like this is some like live stream stuff. Some, you know, we've kind of altered reality from defeating the Arbiter, but Zack still died and he just doesn't know it. And they're just going to expand on that. And, you know, I've seen a lot more people come around to that idea now. Like people were not for that. Like they thought he was alive for sure. And then they were kind of like, maybe not so sure. Especially after the intermission DLC with the church scene with the white behind him, you know? And then they were like, no, wait, he for sure is alive. The devs have said he's alive. But if you read the devs' quotes, they never really say he is indeed alive. They just kind of talk about, like, how is he alive? Yeah, is he alive? But then the Ultimanias say it's his victory and that he survived. He cheated death, right? So it's like, okay, are they just lying? Is it a red herring? And then I've seen some people come around again to say like, okay, wait, maybe it's not a sequel. Maybe it is a reimagining. And if it is, then maybe he is dead. And this is going to be the live stream stuff that Aerith goes through. And Zack's going to be on the back end helping her. That would link up to Advent Children. Right. I'm prepared for whatever. Okay. I don't care. I don't care. I do think personally that he is alive. Okay. And that he's somewhere he's not supposed to be though. All right. So, and if you watch my other videos, you'll, know what I mean by all that. So here's I'll just want to reread some of my theories, I guess, too. So, I want to say that, oh yeah, sorry, I just had to move myself a little bit. So here's the first theory in my first video. Sephiroth has already utilized time travel in the original Final Fantasy VII, and it is being greatly expanded in Remake to explain how he will enact his plan to summon Meteor, create the future, and become a god. The themes of fate and defying destiny are in the script of OG FF7, but easily overlooked until Remake exaggerated them for us. Sephiroth's purpose for this will be to alter the nature of the life stream so that he will not end and not become a part of it one day. He wants to retain himself and never die. In the 7 Re trilogy, we will see how he can achieve his endgame, which was unseen in the original game. So, yeah, I just wanted to reread that for anyone for a real refresher. And then I did have, this was my main theory too, like in my other videos when I was, you know, capping off everything after you watch all those. If you, and you can see like how I get to this if you watch those videos. But, and so this is a long paragraph, so I'm just going to read it. And then maybe if you have questions about it in the comments or whatever, but I'll talk about it a little more. And I do have a little bit more details and evidence for some of this, so stay tuned, okay? So my theory. In the original game, is the will of the planet in Remake. It did not actually happen already. Sephiroth knows of the inevitable end of the planet, having traveled the life stream and visiting the edge of creation, but not about, like, Cloud defeating him and all that stuff from the original. Sephiroth meddling with fate is not meant to thwart the original timeline, but to give him the opportunity to create the future as he sees fit, free from the will of the planet and the nature of the life stream. Okay? And there's that's pretty loaded, but, you know, we'll just go on. The Zack reality is in the future. Here, the life stream is disrupted or stagnant. This place suits Sephiroth's endgame of not ending and creating the future. Aerith is sending messages to herself from this future. She's not from the future from the original. She's from this future, like, contained within the Remake trilogy. And I think we're seeing some of that future, okay? More on that later. Cloud never joins. The party gets nowhere, and consequently, Aerith cannot pray for Holy here. Is it a separate reality, or will our party catch up to this future? I don't know, right? I'm not sure. So anyway, there's some ideas there, you know. Main things would be stagnant reality. Zack gets sucked into the future. He is alive, okay? And there is some time travel shenanigans at play that is meant to use the illusionary powers of Genova to alter the memory of the planet to create these weird realities. Okay? So, if you have followed with my other videos, that won't sound as confusing and convoluted as it maybe just sounded. But, yeah. So now, Subtext did this massive 5-hour-long commentary on OG FF7. He mentioned some of my stuff in it several times throughout this 5-hour span. Thanks, dude. And it's really cool to be collaborating in this way. And I loved it. I watched all 5 hours. And I recommend anyone watch it. And I think this will still be very relevant even after Rebirth comes out. Okay? So, in my previous Stagnant Reality videos, I talked about, you know, Zack being sucked into the future. And I talked about Meteor being summoned in the OG. And look at these images on screen. Look at this one is from Rebirth. This is from Rebirth. This is from OG. This is from OG. And they have very similar color palettes. This was one of the pieces of evidence that I proposed for why Zack was in the future. It wasn't the only thing. But just to kind of remind you of that, okay? Now, after Meteor summoned in the original game, if you go to all the towns back in the world and talk to NPCs, you get some really interesting stories. Now listen to this. Listen to Elmira.
The world's ending. At least, that's what everyone's saying. The sky.
Okay, so right, the world's ending, at least that's what everyone is saying. Now, I think what I am about to show you supports my idea that Zack got sucked into the future. And that we are in some kind of state of reality where either Meteor has been summoned already, or the life stream has become stagnant somehow, and this is causing the world to end somehow as well. So, that could also be summoning the weapons. So anyway, point is, I think Zack's in the future, and the world is ending. And now, in the OG, Meteor is summoned, and if you go to the towns around the world of Final Fantasy VII and talk to NPCs, listen to what they have to say. Check this out. At Gungaga, old man, Shinra's tried a lot of things, but it's only human. It's fate that Meteor will kill the people. And then there's a redheaded person that says, everyone's going to die. Everything's coming to an end. Okay, what about if you go to Calm? Inside the first house, here's a woman. Dear, can you believe it? They say that Shinra's gone under. This world is coming to an end. All because those terrorists called Avalanche stuck their noses in the wrong place. Now if you go to Sector 5 in Midgar, there's a person wearing blue. What's going on with the world? When it's all said and done, we're all going to wind up dead. Okay, what if you go to Upper Junon? Soldier on the path to the airport. Check this out. I finally got orders to join the Great Sephiroth plan. I even get to go on the Galnica too. But I'm just going to ignore them. I want to live to see the end of the world. If I'm lucky, there'll be a good place for me in the new world. And look at this picture I have on screen. The world will be saved, but will you? So, kind of interesting, huh? So, Elmira says the world's ending. And if you go around the world in original Final Fantasy VII, after Meteor summoned, everybody says the world's ending. And what did I say? I said I believe Zack is sucked into the future. Okay? Alright, so there's that. Now, a couple other things here that could be explaining how maybe Aerith is getting some of this information to herself. And also, this is a big concept here. This is something that I've seen a lot. So information to Aerith, you know, how is she getting this information? But then also, is it necessary for her to die? Okay? Is it necessary? I have seen many people say that it is not necessary for her to die. She just has to pray for Holy. I'm not so sure about that because I think the game script kind of tells us that it is necessary. All right? So, check this out. If you go to the City of the Ancients and go to the Viewing Crystal after Meteor summoned, all right? But you haven't got the quest yet to get the key and bring Bugenhagen there. If you haven't done that yet, but if you just go here, okay? Look at, I have Bugenhagen crossed out in the picture above, right? Because he's like, if you go there and he's not there with you, this is what happens. Cloud, he says, it's similar. This place is similar to the inside of the life stream. All the different noise. The noise doesn't go through your ears, but directly into your head. It seems to mean something, but I can't quite get it. I hate not knowing what it is. That's what this is similar to. And then any other character you bring says, my head feels like it's getting crushed. So they're all like, you know, like it feels like they feel this pressure. Okay. Kind of strange, right? So Cloud then says, so Aerith came here too. She stood in this exact spot. Aerith didn't have to come here. She was able to find out all the information here. What Aerith needed was that altar, and only that. Aerith, what were you planning to do? What are we supposed to do? So, Aerith comes to this place and uses the viewing thing somehow, or just senses something in this area, and this helps keep informing her about what she has to do at the altar. Okay? There could be a scenario that, like I was saying, in the stagnant reality future, whatever, where Aerith doesn't get a chance to pray for Holy or summon Holy, maybe somehow in that future, she does get this information somehow back to herself. Okay? And the Aerith and the Beagle timeline with us is given this information from her future self, right? in the Terrier verse or world or stagnant reality or whatever. Okay? Just something I'm just kind of working with here, just kind of like playing with. So now, in terms of Aerith dying, if it has to happen or not, okay? Just check out this dialogue from the original game. This is when Bugenhagen is with you now after you put the key in. Bugenhagen floats up to the platform in the center of the room, okay? Bugenhagen. The knowledge of the ancients swirling around here is telling me one thing. The planet's in a crisis beyond human power or endless time. It says, when the time comes, we must search for holy. Cloud says, holy? Bugenhagen. Holy, the ultimate white magic. Magic that might stand against meteor. Perhaps our last hope to save the planet from meteor. If a soul seeking holy reaches the planet, it will appear. Ho ho ho! Meteor, weapon, everything will disappear. Perhaps even ourselves. Doesn't that remind you of when Aerith says we could be changing fate? We could be changing ourselves. And then think about the world will be saved, but will you? There's these competing forces of Sephiroth's world of meteor and Aerith's world of holy or life stream. And a world that might end up being very different depending on which one works, right? So, kind of interesting. It's very reminiscent of that. Remember what I talked about? Precedence, you know? Here's some precedence for this idea of Aerith saying, we might be changing ourselves. Here's Bugenhagen. Perhaps even ourselves. Cloud goes, even us? Bugenhagen. It is up to the planet to decide. What is best for the planet? What is bad for the planet? All that is bad will disappear, that is all. Ho ho ho. I wonder which we humans are. So, and remember that. At the end, at the highway scene, if you look at the Ultimania, Aerith, it says in between the dialogue that the context is that Aerith is pondering Sephiroth wanting to save the planet. And she thinks the planet wouldn't want to be saved in the way Sephiroth wants to save it. And here's Bugenhagen going, planet might just kill us all. And so maybe Aerith, wants to avoid that fate too, right? So she's probably thinking like, the planet might be okay with everyone dying in order to be saved, right? So that would make a lot of sense then for why Aerith is like, okay, let's go into the singularity. Let's do this, right? Precedence in the OG, right? Okay. Cloud says, search for holy. How do we do it? Bugenhagen says, speak to the planet. Get the white materia. This will bond the planet to humans. Then speak to the planet. If our wish reaches the planet, the white material will begin to glow a pale green. Look, speak to the planet. Aerith needs to convince the planet that it's been given a false fate. That its memories have been messed with. Okay? And remember what I said about if a soul seeking holy reaches the planet, it will appear. This would be very strong evidence, I think, for why Aerith has to die for holy in the life stream to work at all. Okay? All right? So those theories that people talk about where, oh, we can just save her, she doesn't have to die. I think it's completely wrong. All right? All right, so now listen to this. Cloud says, this is the end. He despairs. He says, Aerith had the white materia, but when Aerith died, it fell from the altar. That's why this is the end. And then, of course, we see the screen, and if we put, and all that, and it's like shows us that actually her prayer worked at the altar. It worked. But something's holding it back, right? So then, check this out. Check this out. Okay. Listen to this dialogue here. This is on the high wind. Red 13 says, although she's not here, she left us a window of opportunity. Okay? We can't let it go like this. Said, here's Cloud. Aerith. She was smiling to the end. We can't just let it end with that smile. We have to do something. Let's all go together. Memories of Aerith. Now look at this. Although she should have returned to the planet by now, something stopped her, and now she's stuck. Stagnant reality? Maybe. Ooh. Okay. So she's stuck. Okay. So, remember, a soul seeking the planet. If a soul seeking holy reaches the planet, it will appear. We know the prayer part worked, but so now her soul is stuck, Cloud tells us. All right? It's right there in the OG. I think with that, I'm more and more emboldened by my ideas of the stagnant reality, Zack being sucked into this future that is stagnant somehow, or it's like a false. If it's the life stream, then it is the future, but it's also like a false future that Sephiroth has used his Genova powers to create this illusionary world of the future and trick the planet, you know, to give it a false fate. And Aerith might have to be, you know, breaking down those obstacles in the life stream, and then she gets stuck, and then either Zack has to help her, or we have to, you know, destroy a part of Genova to have her break through to that, to garner the life stream. You know, all that would make sense. That would all be in keeping with just the original. It's not even a sequel at all, if you think about it that way. You know? So I would just be open to it being a nice big fat reimagining in that sense, you know? Okay. The other thing I just want to talk about was Subtext and Professor Noctis. Dudes. Great videos, by the way, lately. We were trying to plan a talk with the three of us. Didn't have time. Just don't have time. The game comes out too soon. The spoiler-free reviews started dropping right after we were trying to put this together to get a time to talk to one another. Schedules weren't lining up, and then the reviews kind of were just like, well, you know, about like hundreds of people have now completed the game. You know, they've got the review copies, they completed it, the reviews are coming out. There's no spoilers, but it's just like, if they know what the game is and we're sitting here spinning our wheels, you know, it might not be that enticing to that. People might not want to really watch that. And like I said, we couldn't really get our schedules together anyway, and there's just not time anymore. So anyway, so that was something that we were trying to have happen. We didn't get to happen. I was a little upset we didn't get to chat, but hopefully we will get to chat eventually. And the last couple things that I didn't get to cover because I ran out of time and because of the reviews coming out, was I was going to do a video on the Kate Sith arc and Keystone, and talking about how I thought they would likely change that up a lot. You know, no time anymore. No big deal. It's okay. I just thought that because there was the fake out of Barrett's death in Remake Part 1, you don't have to have this sacrifice fake out of Kate Sith, basically, in the temple. Because that's always a very weird part of the game where there's Kate Sith version 2 just comes around all of a sudden. I understand that in the original, that could set you up, though, to think that, oh, well, Aerith's not really dead. Like, she'll just come back, right? Because you had this, like, kind of death fake out with Kate Sith. But I think since they did that with Barrett already, that will serve as that function now. And the entire thing of, like, Kate Sith just, like, chucking the Keystone up to a helicopter and running around Gold Saucer, I don't think that's just... It just doesn't seem like that's going to work, you know? But, I don't know. Could be wrong, but I was going to do a video just kind of, like, exploring all of that and talking about those themes of fate and fake death fake outs and all that. The other thing that I didn't get time to do was I was going to do a video on why does Sephiroth need Cloud. I think I could still do that video after Rebirth, though, you know, depending on what we see in that one. Just exploring that connection and why Cloud seems to be so important. Obviously, he's the main character, but it's like, can we dissect that anymore? I think we could. So anyway, didn't get time to do those. Okay, so that's my little just last hoorah before Rebirth comes out. Super excited. What do you guys think of the world ending in OG? If you go around and talk to everybody after Meteor summoned, everyone says the world's ending. From our perspective right now, with what we know of the Rebirth trailers and stuff, it would seem that that is being depicted a bit when Almyra says, the world's ending. At least that's what everyone's saying, right? And if that's the case, then that would mean Zack, and if Zack's talking to her in that moment, which it seems like that's what's being presented, then that would seem like Zack is in the future, you know? Or if he's not in the future exactly, then he is in some kind of live stream reality that is being presented a false future by the illusionary power of Genova and Sephiroth, so that the planet gives itself a false fate to abide by. And Aerith is now taking the gamble of defying fate, right? And attempting to rewrite the planet's memory, which once she prays for holy and dies, may have the mission of correcting some of the memory of the planet. Anyway, all of that is kind of just to wrap up my 3 videos. And man, am I excited to play Rebirth. For the, like, I feel like this is, you know, Christmas morning as a kid or something, right? It's a little, it's not exactly the same, but it's like that. It's as close to that as you can be as an adult, right? So thanks guys for checking this out. Professor Noctis and Subtext, I hope we can chat and make that happen at some point. Yeah. Man, we're almost there. Few more days. All right, guys, later.